Leonard Scheiner has been helping law firms, solo attorneys, and business owners for the past decade with a focus on developing their brand, marketing for new clients, and predictably growing the revenues and online authority for his clients. Today, he's the CEO at Geek House, a law firm marketing agency based in Los Angeles. And I really love folks who are already focused in on a niche, and that's why we've got Leonard with us. So welcome, Leonard.
Nicholas, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I can tell it's really windy in LA at the moment, right?
Very windy, I guess.
That only makes sense to those of you watching this on YouTube. So let's go back one step because I mentioned earlier that I like talking to people who are very niche focused. Now, your niche is on law firms and solo attorneys in particular.
So I would say it's attorneys and kind of small to medium firms. So why law firms? Well, it's kind of where I got my start. So back in university, I took an internship at a law firm. That was a marketing internship, and the rest is kind of history. I fell in love. So from law, though, you really get to touch a lot of different areas of life, right? Whether you're getting in a relationship or out of a relationship or getting into business or out of business. And so I liked that the things that we were dealing with were always new and fun and different, but that we could get really good as a law firm in our craft of solving one particular problem for an array of different people. So yeah, that's the real short story of it. I fell in love. And, when you work with a certain type of person or a certain type of business owner for, 12, 15 years or so, you tend to pick up on some patterns. And the patterns are really what is the secret sauce with someone like me because, you're coming at it with so much experience that you can kind of spot pitfalls and other things that might be ahead of you.
So, a lot of folks wouldn't think that lawyers actually need to advertise or market themselves because you think, okay, I need to get a divorce attorney or divorce lawyer and let me go and find them. And, people I think that process is quite easy. But there's quite a lot of competition, especially in the States where you are based. And it's important for lawyers to be able to, number one, I suppose, just get found. So maybe talk to me about some of the solutions you have because most lawyers are excellent at writing and speaking, but are probably trash at marketing themselves. Why is that?
Well, I guess I'll use your term if they're trash at marketing themselves. A lot of that comes from bridging the gap between the expertise that an attorney holds and where their potential client, right, or customer or buyer, if you're a doctor, you call it a patient. So wherever that potential client is in their mind might not really match the terminology, the messaging that the actual attorney is using in their head, right? They would maybe, so putting this in like a medical sense, right? You could have a doctor come into your room and say, oh, you've got the hypogonadotropinitis, right? And you're like, I don't know what that means. You're like, oh, it just means you have a pimple on your toe, right? You're like, oh, no big deal. But being able to bridge that gap is something that is taught in medical school, right? It's called bedside manner. And then you look at law school and there's nothing there that really teaches them how to bridge that gap. They go to law school to learn how to be a lawyer. And then the business side is kind of left to be, something that you should know inherently. And we all know so often that that's not the case. So, they are running their business, but being able to bring in new leads and new business and kind of the sales and marketing arm of any business is somewhat specialized. You've got delivery, you've got the expertise, you've got all these different departments in any business. And so, they're trained lawyers. They're not trained marketers. So we help bridge that gap for them.
I love that about the bedside manner of doctors because that's exactly what's missing with lawyers. And I think that's a good way of explaining why they need you because the terminology, I'm just recapping what you've said here, that lawyers use is very different to the SEO terms that somebody is going to be is searching for. So, how to divorce my wife or how to do XYZ aspects like that are going to be the terms that advocates and lawyers are going to be using is quite different. It's quite a competitive market, and especially you've spent all this money becoming a lawyer, and you think I am the world's greatest lawyer. I start my own business because I've been working at a large law firm, hitting it out of the ballpark, if that's what you call it.
Yep.
And now I can do this by myself. Let me rather make the big retainers. Let me make the big money. And then folks start, and then, okay, where are the clients? Surely they should be knocking down my door at this stage. Is that a challenge that you've seen, and how do you deal with folks who've just started out and get to that realization where, oh crap, I need help?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I see it on both sides of the board, right? So you're talking about someone who has been in a large firm and is now making that transition out. And so I've seen it where it really takes off and you're up to the stratosphere quite quickly. And that's usually when they've been an in-house counsel, they've been maybe a partner or an associate in a larger firm, but they've done one thing. They've built their network. They've built their own personal brand, right? They've drawn drawn the line in their sand around them and been like, this is what I do, right? So, if you're a M&A attorney, a merger and acquisitions attorney, and you do that specifically for X, right? Manufacturing companies, restaurants, this, that, whatever it is. Again, the specialized knowledge is helpful because the more that you do the more that a potential client would do their research to find an attorney, the more that you've really carved out that area for yourself, the more you're coming up in the results, right? So that's where I've seen it go very easy with the transition from being in-house or in a firm to then being, they call it hanging their own shingle, right? So when we see them going on their own. But I think the large majority is when they come out of a large firm and then they try to do it on their own and it doesn't work, right? What do we do then? So a lot of that is because when you're an attorney, again, you're trained to be an attorney, right? You come in every day advocating for your clients, thinking about legal strategy, thinking about, what judge or what courtroom or where do we file or what is this, or, how would that opinion, right? That's where your mind's at. And it's simply just a bandwidth issue, is that you're focused in your business, in your law firm business, and not on the business, right? Like, what is that on the business? Most people think, well, I've got a website and a phone and I've got my mailing address, right? Like, okay, great. But there's so much more that goes beyond that. And in this highly competitive space, the bar keeps increasing because if Nicholas, if you put out a great event, right, and you're a competitor law firm, then what am I going to do? Next month, I'm going to do a great event. And then you put out a really nice article, then I'm going to do a really nice article. And then you do social media, then I do social media, and you do 100 posts and I do 105, and then you do 110. We're in this race to nowhere, right? Because at the end of the day, someone has to make a buying decision. So if we're just constantly one-upping each other, that is really what the competitive market looks like. So what we do for clients is how do we make them sound different? If the same music is playing, if you're looking for a personal injury attorney after a car accident, or you're getting a divorce and you keep looking for an attorney, right? Strong, aggressive attorneys, right? Okay, well, maybe that's not what everyone wants, right? Maybe people want compassionate attorneys because you were married to this person. You might not hate them. It's just not working, right? And you want them to be well and you want you to be well. And that's why you're getting a divorce, right? So we don't need to be aggressive. What we need to be is diligent, compassionate, and fair, right? So how do we break apart from the typical tune that's playing on the radio and have a different conversation? When we're doing that, again, that's coming from a marketing perspective. It's coming from a communications perspective, right? How are we storytelling to connect with our potential client? That's something that a marketer does, right? The attorney is over there strategizing about the clients that they already have. So really separating the roles or bifurcating the duties, you can understand that it's a bandwidth issue. The attorney needs to be focused on legal, and then there should be someone else, whether that's an external agency or whether that's someone that you hire internally to really focus on the front end of the business, which is bringing in the new clients so they can be serviced in the back office.
When you're talking to a potential new client from your side, what are the sort of pushbacks that you get from a lot of lawyers? Do they think they know too much? Do they think, well, you're too expensive, or I could do this myself? What are some of the main pushbacks that you get? And how do you explain to them exactly what you've mentioned now, that your job should be on doing the work and yours is on generating leads and the other aspects of your work? What are the main challenges that you come up against with new lawyers who don't realize, or when you see the potential in them, but they don't know how much they actually need you?
I think a lot of attorneys look at marketing as kind of what you had mentioned before, is that it's something that's not needed, right? Like I shouldn't have to do a lot of marketing. I can just be here and exist, right? And I think that concept really comes from, if you put a juice shop or a Walmart or a store, like a retail store, you're going to get foot traffic. People are going to see you, they're going to come in, right? But I mean, most law firms don't have walk-ins, right? They're not having that foot traffic. It's not a retail business. And so that idea doesn't really adopt into how they should market a professional services firm. And so, um, some of that pushback is that an attorney thinks that they don't have to market a lot, and therefore they're kind of anti-marketing in general, right? They want the clients, but we don't want to do the marketing, right? Which is kind of very counterintuitive. But those attorneys kind of come to the idea that we need to do marketing. That's what other firms are doing. That's how they're getting clients. So then within they're problem aware. They understand that they need marketing. Then it's really a budgetary conversation, because at some level, you're managing money, right? You're managing a return on investment. And so if you only have, let's say, $1,000 to spend on a Google campaign, I would rather, and I would advise, that you don't spend it on that campaign. Save your money, because it's going to be a drop in the ocean of money that's being spent on Google to get your same type of client, right? So if everyone's spending $20,000 a month and you're spending 1,000, you're never going to get traction, right? And you're going to do it. You're going to get frustrated. Then you're going to say all marketing doesn't work, and you're going to retract and pull back,
Yeah, boo,
right?
Leonard, boo.
Well, and whether it's with me or someone else, right? I get this all the time, that people will say, I've tried that, it doesn't work. And then you're like, well, how much were you spending, right? Like it's not enough oomph to make a difference. So if that is your case, if you're limited on budget, and this is not the case for everyone, but if they are, we want to look at how can you do some organic type of marketing in-house, right? And that looks different for every different practice area. But that's really what we're dealing with most of the time, is that overcoming the idea that marketing is how it happens, and the best attorneys are not the best ones that get the most clients. The best attorneys are usually the ones that are the secret, right? No one knows about them. But who gets the most clients? It's the one who markets the most.
Mhm.
The person who has, is top of mind everywhere.
So, when it comes to law firms and lawyers, there's obviously quite a variety. There are those that just need one big client that will keep them going for a couple of years, and there are those who, like divorce lawyers and perhaps personal injury, they need new clients every month. There's a whole bunch. And
Mm.
obviously, your approach to marketing to them is going to be quite different. And I see you've got quite a couple of nice offerings here. You've got strategy and solutions, inbound client generation, your client sales funnel, email follow-up automations, and an ability to have scalable and predictable growth. Maybe tell me about the different, somebody who's looking for a big ticket item, so just needs one big client, versus the approach that you'd have for those who just who've got a whole bunch of lawyers and they need to keep them busy and fed. How do you deal with those two different types of clients?
Well, Nicholas, you're absolutely correct that they are two very different types of clients, right? Two very different goals. And so the path to get there, the strategy, is going to be very different. So I actually like to, in a way, weed out the prospects of our agency that are only looking for 1 to 2 clients. It's just frankly, it's not an attractive path for an agency like mine, or really, I dare I say, really any agency, right? Because there's not enough work to do there. If you're
Yeah.
looking for only a few clients, then this is going to be you as the attorney with your boots on the ground, networking, doing talks, sending emails, doing marketing that's permitted by the bar to get new clients, right? Because you only need one or two, right? And once you get those, you're going to be like, I'm full, I can't handle it anymore. Okay, well, that's great. But if you're focused on growth, which is really the model that we use, right? So I created the brand market grow model. And that's really how any law firm or any professional service firm, right? So that could be an accounting firm, it could be an architecture firm, etc. Any professional service firm needs to follow the brand market grow method. And if they're doing it on their own and they're having success, they're probably doing some version of the brand market grow method. Because if you just go out and you just go straight to market and you're just like, here, I want something, right? You're going to get one or two clients, which is what you need. And then you're happy, you're satisfied, fine. But on the other hand of things, if you really want to grow, you have to have a brand, right? Which is encompassing of the website, marketing material, headshots, case studies, all of these materials that have to be developed by a marketing person. There's back work we need to do, right? Before we show up to the consultation and try to make the sale, right? It's like showing up if you were to show up to a job interview in your pajamas with no makeup on and your hair was all wacky and you still had like toothpaste on your lips. Like, why would you show up to a job interview like that? No one would ever do that. Yet attorneys, I see it time again, where their website does not look like how it should. Their business card is scuffed and crinkled. They're showing up and their email is at Gmail. And then they think that they don't need marketing. And it's just like, no, those are the clients those are the people, the attorneys who want 1 to 2 clients. And it's like, then go get your 1 to 2 clients. Because what I'm trying to do is enterprise your law knowledge, right? I'm trying to package your expertise in a way so that you can grow at scale. We're going to first set up your foundation, give you a brand with all of these materials that you can bounce off of, because you can't shoot a cannon from a canoe. You're going to have a warship, right? Else you're going to sink your canoe. So we give you that foundation. That's your brand. Then we go to market, right? Then we're out there sending emails, doing events, because we know what the heck we're talking about, right? We do a lot of that. That's your activity. That's the momentum. The more of that we do, the more is going to come in, right? Our outflow is positively correlated to our inflow. And once we've got that system down, once we know, okay, we're doing these things 4 times a week, we're doing these things once a day, whatever that system is. And again, it's different based on who the attorney is, right? Maybe they love this type and they don't like that type, so we fit it to them. But it's also about having the predictability. So once we have predictability and we can scale the marketing that we're doing, then we can go to grow. Because within grow, we're going to double down on all those efforts. We're going to optimize all those efforts. And guess what? That's where you see that hockey stick of an increase, right? Because now we've established, what are we doing? We know what we're doing. Let's test it out. Now we prove the concept in marketing. Now we're ready to go, right? That's really the progression that most attorneys would love to see. And that follows the brand market grow method. And with all of this, it's focused on growth, right? It's not a 1 to 2 clients thing. This is focused for the volume.
Well, as a self-described marketing professional, I agree with your approach. And I think if people follow that, that's going to go, "What?" Not very softly. You said, I mean, we need a bit more oomph and energy there. The other thing that you mentioned, which you mentioned just in passing, is, there's certain laws in terms of what the bar will allow. I think that's another differentiator that you have versus somebody going to their cousin or a friend, hey, can you do a couple of ads for me? This is a specialist area that you can get the gavel thrown at you in, if you want to pardon that phrase. And I have to commend you on the cannon in a canoe. I've never heard that before. That's wonderful. So
It paints a nice visual. That's for sure.
It does. I love it. Now, we were going to chat a little bit about customer lifetime value and things like that. But I think we should leave that for another session because I really love your brand market
Yep. Brand market grow.
brand market grow. Very, very simple and very clear. I agree with that approach. I think it's effective. And I think if anyone is in LA, has a law firm, or is wanting to start out, you have to speak to Leonard. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And I can, with my stamp of approval, say that if you follow his steps, things are going to work out very nicely. Let's see. I think we're going to leave it there because you gave us so many nuggets. I don't want to overburden our poor listeners with all of these pearls of wisdom that you've flung out towards us. So we might have to have another session talking about some specific topics, perhaps. Leonard, it's been great chatting to you. And where can I send folks to learn a little bit more about your brand market grow process and other services that you've got, which there are multitudes of them on your cool website?
Well, thank you for that tee up. We are online. Our website is gogeekhouse.com. So go, G-O, and then geek, G-E-E-K. And then house, we spell a little bit different. It's H-A-U-S. So go geek, H-A-U-S, gogeekhouse.com. And then one thing that I always like to invite people to is one of my recurring virtual trainings, which is where we spend one day to go from wherever you are now, which let's call it 0, through getting booked on podcasts. And I know it's a little meta because that's what we're doing here today. But when we're looking at building credibility for a lawyer, for a law firm, a lot of that comes by when they Google your name, what comes up? And so if we can establish a way for you to be consistently in the media, in the press, right? I run a PR and marketing agency. We're very regularly getting people on top tier media like ABC, CBS, Bloomberg, Forbes. So one notch before that is that we do a lot of podcasting work because this lets you, just like Nicholas has been so nice for us to do, is to kind of work with messages, right? Explore some ideas, get a little bit deeper with talks. When you're on the news, it's much quicker. So what I host is a training that teaches you the steps of how to create your bio, where to find shows, how to pitch them, and that whole process on a one-day virtual event. So you can go to podcastguestintensive.com. And if you see one and the date is too quick or just passed, again, we have those regularly. You're always welcome to bring a friend. I think it helps too, because bringing people, you're more likely to show up and actually put into action the knowledge that you're learning.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I totally left out the PR side, and obviously PR is enormous for this particular profession. So maybe we can chat about that next time, and how you can as a lawyer or in a services business can use podcasts and PR to get yourself out there. Because I'm a big fan of PR over advertising, especially for services.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we can definitely have a chat about that. Well, after that, Leonard, I will put those links in the description for those of you who are not able to remember the names. So I'll put that in the description. And Leonard, it's been great chatting to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Always a pleasure.